3 or 4 Liberals, 3 or 4 from the SDP, to meet and share the seats. So we had a joint Alliance Committee, and that was shared by Winston Roddick, who is now the Police Commissioner in North Wales. A good friend of mine. I haven't spoken with him for years by now, but I was glad that he won that election, because you know, he's been hard done by in politics by the Liberal Party. You know, there was conflict always between Winston and Mike German and Jenny Anderson, and he was constantly outmanoeuvred. But he was, you know, but by far the most politically acute and astute of those three. So I'm glad that he has been elected to a public role at last. Although he didn't do that bad, he was an eminent QC. I think he became the QC for the Welsh Assembly. I'm sure he was. The Attorney General, or whatever it's called within the Assembly. Winston was that. Anyway, so there was this committee now, and we allocated the seats. Okay? Well, the SDP in London were furious, because they wanted the SDP to fight every seat. And we said, we're not going to go down that silly road. You know what I mean? Resources are scarce. We are the same people in essence. We've set up 2 parties. There are 2 parties, but in essence we're one party. Let's face reality here. So I had to go. I was on the National Committee by then. So I had to go and defend our decision. And I was accused that this was Tom Ellis and my idea. Nobody else's. You know what I mean? The membership didn't want it. Although it had come from the member, we'd be very careful to do that. We'd been in politics too long. Nothing we did happened without knowing that every constituency and every member supported it as far as it could. So 5% didn't, like Jeff Drake and his wife, and Phil Williams, another prominent ex-Labour person in Cardiff. I remember when we joined the SDP and we all started meeting together back in 1981, I came across Jeff Drake and Phil Williams in the crowd. And I went up to them and said, boys, one of us is making a mistake here. That we have ended up in the same party is a big, big mistake. And it was. You know, they were not devolutionists. They were not federalists. They were not in favour of the language. They were not in favour of a Welsh Assembly. And that's the way the SDP was going to go. So they were going to refight old battles within the SDP. And that's what they did. Conference after conference, policy meeting after policy meeting, 2 or 3 of these ex-Labour people carried the old Labour fights. But we were well into the majority, because the membership of the party were far more radical than those people. Anyway, we were accused of, these were our decision on the seats. So they decided to send a delegation down from London to a meeting of the SDP committee in Wales. And it was a 3-hour meeting with senior people from Bill Rogers, Mike Thomas, the Secretary Alex McGibbon. They were sent down to hear the views of the SDP committee for Wales, which was about 30 strong. Okay? Tom and I just kept quiet. And they, to a man, told them, look, this is our agreement. Don't think that Tom and Gwynoro are engineering us and manoeuvring us into situations. And they went back and they said to Owen and Jenkins and those, look, we better forget all this nonsense. This is their view. This is what the SDP in Wales wants to do. And then after 83, the Alliance Committee became far more important now. And we started to have alliance conferences now. Not just SDP conference and Liberal conference, and we'd go to each other's as fraternal delegates and all this sort of thing. There were now going to be annual alliance conferences with policies and with votes. Well, you know, he went apoplectic, whatever the word is. Do you know what about that? That we are now, it is almost one party now, isn't it? We were saying to London, in Wales, we are going to operate as one party. It wasn't, but we were very, very, very near it. And conference after conference, I used to argue these things and make speeches about federalism in London. Devolution, major issue, major fact in the mid-80s within the SDP, because Owen Jenkins was a bit lukewarm and Shirley, and Bill, I don't think Bill was interested in devolution at all. But we had to make sure that devolution remained a major plank of SDP policy. And we won the argument for a federal Britain. You know, and I claim a lot of credit for that by, well, I'm a persuasive guy, and the power of my oratory and all that. I could swing the crowds all. Whenever it was going bad, few people realise this. Shirley or somebody would engineer the platform to call me to speak, to swing the crowd round. You know, it happened time after time after time. That used to happen to make sure it got through. And when the final decision came, big struggle as to was the SDP and the Liberals going to come together, 87, 88. The same thing happened there. SDP had its conference, people were speaking for and against, and the last speaker, before we had a vote as to whether to join the Liberals, Shirley called, she was president then, Shirley called me to speak. At the last speaker, and she did tell me before lunchtime, I'll call you last, she said, but don't rock the boat now today. Don't annoy the people who don't want to join. Be careful on Owen and things like that. So I actually said one or two nice things about him. And something along the... Because through the corner of my eye, he wasn't in the hall, but he had the door open. And I could see his face, listening to me speak, you see. So I actually said something nice about him, and the crowd clapped a bit then. But in the end, then I turned to why it should be one party, and the vote was overwhelming. So, it was a sad time, because you created a party in 81.